We are live here with Professor Chioma Chigozie-Okwum, who she goes by, on LinkedIn, she goes by Cyber Chioma. And this is actually really interesting. She is a cybersecurity analyst and researcher. So for everyone participating in our event, we've been talking mostly about analytics, but a little bit more focused on analytics, such as I'm researching data to draw conclusions for this and that, but not necessarily in the sense of cybersecurity. You know, we're a little more focused on finding out who's the best basketball player, which stock is the best. So starting off, Cyber Chioma, Professor Chigozie-Okwum, can you tell us about yourself, but also a little bit, what is cyber analytics, cybersecurity analyst? You know, what does that mean?
Okay, thank you so much, Scotty. Thank you for having me. I am Chioma Chigozie-Okwum, like you rightly said. I am indigenous to Nigeria. I work in Nigeria. I work as a faculty member in the Department of Computer Science of the Spiritan University. Spiritan University is located at Nneochi in the southeastern parts of Nigeria. It's a faith-based university with a lot of diversity, despite being a faith-based university. I also head the Department of Information and Communications Technology of the university. So you can say that I have two roles at the university. I teach, I do research. I also ensure that all our IT infrastructure are working at top-notch and that everybody is getting all the tech supports that they need while they are on campus. Cybersecurity analytics is a little different from what you do in business analytics or in choice analytics. Cybersecurity analytics is focusing on analyzing your risk appetite, understanding your risk landscape, analyzing your threats, also understanding how to manage these risks. And when these incidents happen, how do you recover? How do you get back on your feet? And then all this data will help you to plan for the future so that you don't get the kind of impact you got before you carry out all this analysis. So it's actually a very exciting field to work in because you are working with tons of data from networks, from your connectivity, from your users, it's just a lot, but it's exciting. You know, I tell people that cyber security analysts should be given maybe a uniform like those in the army.
I agree.
or in the police, or at least we should get badges, you know, because we actually do a lot of security work, and it's so exciting working in this space.
Yeah, and it makes sense because there's physical security, such as if I walk into your classroom, you might say, you're disrupting my class, security, get them out. But if you're trying to teach a lesson and I hack your PowerPoint, well, someone get me out, right? And I think another way to describe it is kind of like when you mentioned, you know, your risk appetite. For me, growing up playing basketball, for any athlete, we also know we study the opponents to decide how are we going to defend against them trying to score. That's also risk appetite. Do I let him take lots of shots? Or no, I force the ball out of his hand, out of his feet, depending on the sport, let someone else deal with it. Or maybe I'm supposed to defend this guy, but I'm going to back off a bit. And instead of defending him, I defend an area, but I'm close enough to defend him. Sometimes it's, no, I only defend him. I don't care about the area. Other times it's, we don't defend any one person. We cover areas, so we deny them access. And in your case, sometimes it's let me defend one file, or it's, you know, maybe the whole company, or maybe, you know, sometimes I've heard of the concept of honeypots. You know, you attract a hacker and trap them. Of course, the honeypot means you get something.
You trap them in the nets, in your net, you don't do them. Like, I actually agree with what you said, because in cybersecurity, you know, we have the offensive and then the defensive mechanisms. At some point, when you have identified your threats, you take the war to them, you know. But then at some other point, when you analyze your situation, you understand that there is no need taking this fight out to them. You protect your thoughts. So it's all these the decisions don't come by intuition. They must be informed by standard data analytics. That is what we do. You don't take decisions because I feel like going to war. No, we don't do things like that.
Yeah, because we even know, you know, for example, the Nigerian army has been a powerful peacekeeping force throughout Africa, and I guess other continents as well. But I do know, at least in Africa, a lot of the African Union operations, and one major decision making, or I guess one major factor in the decision making, is deciding which areas are worth Nigerian intervention, and sometimes saying we need to protect our homeland and this and that. And, you know, like you said, uniforms, badges, yes, because even the intelligence officers, the supply officers, they're part of this force. And if I'm protecting my country or my company or my family by protecting our data, it's a similar situation. I'm using some kind of intelligence, in this case, you know, maybe not the physical data, but like you're saying, you know, offensive or defensive, trying to protect the information. And yeah, you know, saying, you know, here's a uniform, here's a badge. I think that makes sense. Now, of course, you know, the counter argument would be maybe you want them to be like Secret Service, so you don't know they exist. But you know, of course, that's
on the physical, there are people who don't wear those uniforms and those badges. I tell people that we should begin to look at cybersecurity from the same perspective that we look at physical security.
Yeah.
Everybody in cybersecurity don't necessarily have to work in the offensive or in the defensive. Some can work in the human factor security apparatuses, you know, trying to secure the human aspect, like your regular rangers, your regular police people, the one that come to interact with you, you know, that teach you the right things to do. You could, you know, all those ones can't walk behind. They have to be in your face. And you have to know that these guys are actually working in this space to protect me. So this is actually a model I have been preaching. If we can look at cybersecurity exactly the same way we look at physical security, and in that way we even begin to unbundle some of the things that we do. You know, you have a single person working as a unicorn, doing everything. You know, and then when there is an issue or there is an insider threat, that person that is working as a unicorn now becomes your greatest Achilles heel, you know. So if we can begin to separate these roles and let people have clear-cut roles it also boils down to what I see a lot of hiring managers do. You know, you want to hire for a particular role and you're putting job description that's, you know, that cuts across the entire cybersecurity landscape. And I'm asking, is the one person gonna be doing all these jobs? You know, I think that's why we are not getting as far as we should be getting as a field. You know, because we are not looking at our issues from a root cause perspective. We're just looking at it from a very broad perspective. You know, I work in cybersecurity, so I do everything. I'm basically like a jack of all trades. You know, I don't subscribe to that.
Yeah. And I think, you know, like you mentioned, offensive versus defensive, you know, visible versus invisible. That's where we get into the question of, you know, clandestine or not, because sometimes I think with physical security, the uniform helps deter someone who is thinking about doing something, but then someone who has planned well and is highly motivated to attack anyways, they won't care about the uniforms that they see. And that's where having the ununiformed, you know, the clandestine services, that's obviously, you know, they're the ones doing counterintelligence, and, you know, rather than deter you, they're there to catch you, you know, trap you with a honeypot, stuff like that. And I think obviously we've seen a lot, you know, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm getting the name right, but I believe they're called red flag operations. Basically, you know, you have the honeypot, but with the red flag operations, it's kind of you're kind of also not necessarily catching them right away. You're kind of flagging certain weak points because you want the attacks to happen so you can find out where your weaknesses are, but then
and
you
and
plug
then
them
get all your details right, because
yeah
sometimes it could also be a decoy to distract you,
yeah
to look the other way, and then they come from the actual route that they're planning to come to. So you actually have to let these things, sometimes you let these things happen to a certain percentage, so that you are able to understand how far these things can go. And then when you said something about a uniform being deterring, I over the last 1 year to a year and a half, COVID and all that, I dedicated all my time during the COVID lockdown to building a community around myself. That was how I got the name Cyber Chioma. That was a friend of mine that works in Italy. He works with one intelligence bureau. He said, you do a lot of cyber security discussions on your Facebook, not even on LinkedIn, on Facebook. So people like my friends now have to think twice before they do a lot of things, especially when they say Chioma is around, especially around these issues of bullying, stalking, and all those. They'll be like, Chioma is around, she won't like this. She won't like this, your comment, take it down. I've seen people write that, those, and then if they see issues like that, they will tag me. They will be like, come on. So there is this level of security that we actually achieve when people know that Mr. A, maybe Scotty, Chioma are actually out there protecting the innocent, especially I call them the digitally vulnerable, the uninformed users, the underage users, the overage, the aged users too, because we have our old people online, our parents, our grandparents, who just came up, the internet just happened to them by chance. They didn't grow into it, and then we also have our children online because of this whole online schooling and all that. Somebody has to look out for them. Everybody doesn't have to start focusing on, the brute force attacks, the DDoS attacks, all the technical attacks. So someone just also has to look out for these people's intentions. The underage, the aged, the uninformed, the rookies, the ones that open all the phishing emails, they click on all the links, they click all the back doors. They don't understand that these things actually can become a huge point of vulnerability that can pull an entire enterprise down. So that is actually where I'm focusing. If you read through my bio, you will find out that I'm dedicating, though I worked on intrusion detection for my PhD thesis, but lately I've developed greater interest in human factor security. And then of recent, I'm focusing on cyber psychology. Cyber psychology in the sense that we need to understand the mindset of these criminals. And if you don't think like them, you cannot catch them. You need to start thinking like them. You need to start understanding their feelings. You need to start querying their emotions. You need to start also understanding the emotions of your users. Even when you create all these solutions, how much of your users' emotions are you building into all these solutions that you are creating to ensure that you are able to persuade them? Because recently there is increase in if we don't use persuasiveness in building applications, people get to a point where there's a point you call a complacency point, where you get so tired of adhering to these security protocols. But if I know your feelings and your moods, I'm able to massage your emotions. You keep doing the things I want you to do, and we are all secure.
Yeah, and I think right now we've discussed a few different conflicts that happen between life and tech. I think it reminds me of a few things. For example, Alan Turing, especially in the movie The Imitation Game, when they cracked the Nazi Enigma code, they had the debate: which German attacks do they find out and prevent versus which ones do they find out but allow, because they can't let the Germans know that they cracked the code. So they had to they had to prioritize which ones do we prevent. And then when you mentioned, I guess, so you're talking about the, the human cyber, how we interact with that. The term I've often heard also is social engineering. If I walk into a room, I see a sign-up sheet, I just start writing down my information. But that could be something collecting my information, just like how, oh, there's a parking attendant. I pay the parking attendant, but there's no fee for the parking attendant. We're just used to doing things in a social, physical way that cybersecurity sometimes simply relies on, oh, do you just think I just do it because everyone does it? Maybe, maybe not. So I think it's really interesting, even though we're trying to do what's best for others, even if we're telling everyone, be safe with your information, there's always that conflict between life and tech, the real experience. And it's kind of like the elders who the internet has just happened. For example, the first time all of our ancestors and tribes invented writing, right? I can write, and then I can write the wrong things for everyone to read. Where now we can online check, wait a minute, that does not sound right. And I learned in school this and that. And then, but when people first started writing, I could write something. And if you can't read because writing was invented 2 weeks ago, and then I tell you I wrote this, but I wrote something else, right? Historians today, archaeologists, we can like say, wait a minute, this record does not match with the legend or myth that tribe told. What's going on here?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's wrote it down. Because sometimes, it's clandestine information. So, it's fascinating, the conflict between life and tech, the stuff you're talking about, the psychology behind the cybersecurity, I think it's fascinating. So, your friends saying on Facebook, do we post this or not? It's amazing to think there's so much psychology behind all this, because we're still researching the psychology behind our physical and social interactions. And now we have to deal with our cyber, digital, remote interactions.
Work from home, school from home, it's just a lot happening at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And, for anyone watching, we do want to encourage you, don't feel discouraged. For example, Cyber Chioma was created through this. DATAnalyze, EU versus virus. I helped the European Commission host 30,000 participants online last year. These are things that are the result of the remote revolution. We all found some way to get through the agricultural revolution. Some countries got ahead with the industrial revolution. We had the atomic revolution, digital revolution. Now we're having the remote revolution, and we are in a position where we can do even more to reach out to everyone and say, here's a way forward with us, because it's remote. Yes, we need you to have hardware, but if you have hardware and you can connect to us, or if you need to go 2-3 hours to a place with Wi-Fi, at the least, it's accessible. It's not completely accessible, but you're not shut off completely. So I think, the way tech can impact the future is phenomenal. It's not just here's radio, here's writing, here's printing. This is a very, very global communication system. And obviously, how do we treat it respectfully and responsibly, like you said, with cybersecurity? So, anyone who's watching, if you're a participant, you're able to connect with us, we definitely want you to do what you can to join us. So, check the video description. You can connect with Cyber Chioma. But, obviously going back to the main point of this video, for you being a professor, also studying cybersecurity, but then also just being a private citizen, just an individual, how do you see tech impacting the future of the world? You've already talked about a lot of these things, but maybe if you project a little further, maybe 25 years out, how do you see some things changing?
Well, we can start from looking at what is going to happen maybe in the next 5 years. And if you look at how fast that tech is evolving. Look
Yeah.
at where we were last year before COVID, and then look at where we are just over a year. I won't say post-COVID, but just over a year after we COVID. So you find out that a lot of things that we didn't imagine, you know, could happen are actually happening now. Okay, there's going to be a lot of changes in the way we live. There's going to be a lot of changes in what we call work. There is going to be a lot of changes in how we study. You know, we are going to begin to see a lot of revolution in the way we package our studies. Go to the university, do 4 years and all that. I don't know if that is going to keep happening, because I see a lot of do I call it tokenization of education. You know, people are going to start packaging courses in models. That is my own projection. And then if this is what you need for this role, you can actually get in there, take that model, get out, get the role, get the job going. And if you need to upgrade, you know, you also do that. So there's going to be a lot of changes in social interactions. I'm afraid a lot of person-to-person interaction is actually going to go cold. Is happening. You know, because everybody is going to try, and there's going to be a lot of multiplication of information, trying to catch up. People are going to be losing their breath in an attempt to catch up. I want to catch up with this, I want to catch up with that, with work, with studies, and before you know it, you are losing your breath. And it might affect human interaction, relationships, you know, families, if we don't put a leash, you know, from the outset on how much it also brings to this human tech conflict. We need to start now to manage that conflict, because future, and everything is going to move fast. Imagine us having 6Gs, you know, all that internet that moves, you know, faster than the blink of your eye, you know, and information that doubles by the second, by the minute. And the platforms that are created to do almost everything for you. You know, you have intelligent computing taking over jobs. You know, there's going to be a lot of panic, because what's the kind of jobs that we understand now in future, especially jobs that require repetitiveness, you know, and paying attention to the details, are going to move away from being done by humans to AIs, because you know, there's going to be a lot of revolution, and we need to grab a seat and sit tight and hold our hands by the handle, if we won't be blown away. But it's actually going to be a very beautiful thing for those that love lifelong learning. You know, people that love to learn on the go, people that love to catch up with what is happening. It's going to be very exciting. You know, I tell my students that as much as I am their professor, they are also my teacher, because they are younger. They actually are exploring more, so they know how these things happen. They understand these things better than myself, but I'm just there to guide them. And when I'm not able to understand these things because of maybe my age, or I'm too tired to catch up, I will not have to rely on them to hold my hands when that time comes. So it's actually going to be an exciting future with tech. And but we are all in it together, and I think we'll all be just fine at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think you know, when you said that your students are also your teachers, there's a phrase in Chinese that came from Confucius, and my dad told me a long time ago when I was a kid, and basically well, I'll go ahead and say 三人行必有我师焉, and what that means is, in any group of 3, there will always be a teacher. There's always a lesson for me, because between 2 people, maybe I'm better than that person in every way. But with a third person, then most likely that person, there's going to be something different about them, and I might have something to learn. It doesn't mean they're better or I'm better. It just means maybe here's a person that they're learning everything from me, but here's another person. Most likely when you have more than 2 people, and then especially that phrase being taken literally says there's 3, but what it really means is in groups. in clans, tribes, families, communities, countries. There's always something you can learn from someone. And like you're saying, maybe you're the professor. You're saying, this is my expertise. This is how things work. But as things evolve with your generation, I can start learning from you as well. So I think, it's great that you said that because, some participants might feel like, how do I compete in this event? Well, maybe you just need to find something you do better. Maybe you're not the best at coding, but you're great at asking the right questions. So we're saying find data to back up those questions or reject those questions. Well, maybe you're the one who has to find the questions so your team can analyze the data. Maybe you're the one to present the data. Maybe you're the one to visualize the results. But in the end, there's something each person can contribute. And of course, that's assuming that you don't take time to learn during this event, learn how to code or how to present. And, we want to make sure everyone, so for this weekend, we're just kind of talking about stories because we want everyone to be able to think beyond just the questions they see and say, what questions are there in the world to ask? What are the right questions? Maybe not the right questions for everyone, but the right questions for me, for us, for our team, for whatever group it is. And, I think a lot of it is for anyone trying to learn this stuff. A lot of it is very much based on initially the mindset. The skill set is important, but the mindset is what anchors the skill set.
Exactly. Yes, I always do tell my students that is your mind that you need to work hard on, because the skills you can even learn on the job, but your mind, which is the where all the soft skills of your emotional intelligence, your communication, your ability to think, your critical thinking, problem solving, that is where you need to grow, because so that you're able to adapt to different work situations, to different colleagues, to different environments, to different things that life is going to throw at you. But as far as the skill is concerned, you can actually pick it up by looking at over your head at the next person doing it, and then you are able to pick it. But all those other soft skills I mentioned, you need to develop and grow them and nurture them to a point where you are able to become that ultimate individual that becomes almost indispensable in the workplace.
Yeah, definitely. So Chioma, we've gone through pretty much all the questions I had in mind. I didn't ask them all, but we answered them in some way. For example, what we hope to see from the community for the community. What we want participants to gain from this event. The conflicts between tech and life. Why you became interested in tech, how it's impacted your life, and stuff like that. So what I'd like to do is this. Let's say it's a little different, but let's say this is your first time at a hackathon, your first time trying to pursue some kind of analytics project. What would you tell that person, for you as a professor, telling Chioma, the young girl who just started doing all this, what would you like to tell that person? Oh, I think we might be frozen a bit here.
Sorry, I lost my internet for a sec. Can you hear me now?
Happens. So
Yeah.
all right, yeah, I can hear you now. So I'll go and repeat the question. To close out, let's pretend you are talking to young Chioma who just started studying all this.
Okay.
Knowing what you know now, what would you like to tell yourself back then? What would you tell that young girl about tech and analytics?
Well, if I had the mindset I have now, 13, 14 years ago, when I actually started out fresh from college and all that, what I would tell myself is to, first of all, to trust in my inner abilities. It's very easy for young people, if they hear the word hackathon or tech competition, they begin to fret. because they are scared that these particular people coming from a particular a demographic or a particular tribe or a particular country actually have more exposure to tech, exposure to coding skills, etc. But there is something unique about yourself. Okay, so I'm going to tell myself to trust that my ability to come up with the rarest ideas. Okay, because I do have that ability. I come up with ideas that are very rare, but most times I'm too scared to, I was too scared to voice them out because I feel like I don't have the ability to carry out these ideas up to execution point. But hey, there is room for collaboration now. I can actually work with someone who lives in China on the same team. All I need to do is just to bring up that idea. It bring out all the use cases around that particular idea, all the functional requirements required, and then discuss it. We'll brainstorm. We'll come up with the worst ideas, the best ideas. We ideate, we'll define our problems, and then we now begin to build our prototypes, and we'll begin to come up with solutions. And yes, I will tell myself, collaborate, find someone who identifies, who has blocks off those shortcomings that you think you have, learn from them, work with them, collaborate with them, and come tops. And I think if you have this mindset, you could actually win this hackathon. I'm referring to myself now, like my younger self.
Yeah. Great advice. And I'm sure a lot of participants probably feel the same way. Well, what do I do? Well, trust your inner abilities. And of course, we have mentors on Discord, on social media, all the various speakers. If you check their video descriptions, there's contact information. We want you to reach out to them. They want you to reach out to them. So please do that. You can also just ask other participants for help. And it's not just participants from your own community. If you think, oh, we don't know enough, that's fine. There are participants from other communities. For example, the opening ceremony, we had Will Moss talking about a lot of the students from HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. So they're Americans a lot of times. They're here in the US. Also, students coming from places like Duke, Harvard, Stanford, MIT, a lot of the top schools in the US. We're going to have a lot of people around. So if you have questions, ask someone in a different time zone, different continent, different country, maybe your next door neighbor who is always banging on your window, turns out they have the answer. So ask questions, reach out to people, network with them, get to know them, become their friends, become their teammates. We want you to succeed. They want you to succeed. You just need to want yourself to succeed. And of course,
exactly.
Your inner abilities, learning that all of us have fear, all of us have imposter syndrome. We all feel sometimes, but in the end, when it's time to step forward, we're the only ones who can step forward for ourselves. But once we do, others will help us take a big enough step to get over that puddle, to jump across that gap, So a lot of times it's really it's in our head. It's still real, but it's in our head. We just need to find a way to bring the courage out and get out of our own heads and say, okay, it's real, but there's a way to solve it. Because it's a real fear, there's a real solution. Sometimes it takes, but once you get there, we all want to be here to grab your hand and say, we'll help you all the way across.
Yeah, I agree with you. And most of my, most of the skills I acquired, or the connections I built, are actually from events like such as this. When I get out there, I'm looking for that individual who I can relate with, who I can understand, from their own perspective, who I can actually work with. So this is actually an opportunity for you to grow your network, for you to grow your skill sets, for you to learn, and for you to put your mark on the global stage. So it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. So Chioma, thank you so much for joining us. We've covered a lot of different things. So any participants, check the video description. You can reach out to Chioma. We will have her LinkedIn and a few other things. So feel free to reach out. We definitely hope that you enjoy this. And Chioma, thank you. We would love to invite you back in the future. You know, of course, we'll have to decide if it's a panel or another individual talk, but thank you for your time. And obviously, you know, best of luck to you, your participants, and, you know, if anyone's looking to reach out and connect, down there, video description, and just feel free to reach out to whoever. Also, the other videos, reach out to those people as well. So, Chioma, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Scotty. It's actually been an amazing conversation, and I feel so excited. And all the best with the organization and the execution and of the project. And I wish all our participants all the best.
Thank you. Very kind words from a really kind and wise woman, engineer, professor. So, participants, best of luck.